So I'm still laughing about the story that you are spite writing because of the chosen one. I know you don't like to share your work publicly, but I'm spoiling it because I'm a blabbermouth, and I just think it's hilarious that there's now a story out there that may or may not be semi-inspired by my hatred of the chosen one, because that is a topic that a lot of my friends seem to like to talk about. They find it hilarious that I have such strong emotional hatred for the chosen one. So I'm still recovering from your message, and I just finished watching your video, so I'm going to try to I'm going to try to get into the right headspace, and I will address the this is because my thumb's been broken ever since I drew a 51 page one shot over the summer. So this is to hopefully help my thumb. It honestly still really hurts, so I've been trying to not use the phone. And it's also another hilarious thought is that we're going to be able to watch my hair fade out over the weeks. So maybe next week we'll have a fresh new coat of purple on there. So that's something fun to look forward to. But I'm trying to, it's harder for me to like address, it's like I feel like it's like a video of like a bunch of thoughts, and then I have to like try to figure out exactly like what I want to talk about, because there's a lot of really good information in your video, and it's a lot of things that I want to address and talk. I made an effort. I have like 5 little sticky notes that I have down here on my monitor, my drawing tablet here. I will try to like be coherent, but usually once I get off the rails, it's a lost cause. I just kind of like go off. So I'm trying to like make this like strung together. Like I like that aspect. And Laura, for anyone who's not Laura who's watching this, is a very like tidy person. She likes to have like all of her little organization stuff, and it's been hilarious because we've done like events together, and it's always like the polar opposite of me, who doesn't really plan. I do enough planning, but most of the time I'll like divert. I'll be like, oh yeah, let's do this. And I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm going to do this. So it's kind of hilarious that we are managing this channel. Laura's the more organized one, so I'm trying to like tie our videos together. I'm trying. It's hard to rein in the pantser in me. I just kind of go and just like to see where things end up. So I guess like the first thing I wanted to say was that just in terms of being able to share your work, it's like I'm so excited and I love what I write and I like sharing it, but I keep in mind that everything I share it's not guaranteed. Like none of the stuff I share is always going to be like in my final product. Or it's like, I don't feel like everyone knows it's not like a finished piece. It's just like, oh, Noelle was really excited about this one sentence that she wrote and she wanted to share it. So like it kind of helps show like the backstory, and it's something that I've always really enjoyed doing because we're already going to tangent. Whatever. I tried. I had a plan. I'm not having a plan anymore. When I first started writing Shadow's Hand, ta-da, Shadow's Hand, I never really, I didn't have a big support group. Quite honestly, it was mostly me just like sharing snippets because I was excited about the process of writing. So that was mostly what I did. And it wasn't until way, way after I had published my book that I then had like the image in my head that what I was writing wasn't just mine, which was a weird mind shift for me because like I've always written for me. Like Shadow's Hand is very much an exploration about the samurai code and just like a warrior and their duty. And it was very much like an exploration of what would happen if I put these characters in these certain situations. And then it was more like me exploring the world, sort of. So like I didn't care, and to an extent, it's not the same as it used to be. But to an extent, like I didn't care, like in the beginning, like I didn't care if anyone would read it. Like granted, I wanted people to read it, but it's like I didn't need that sort of liking, which I feel is sort of like a blessing, because I know from knowing you, you're very worried about people who just like liking you. Like liking you. It's so eloquent. I'm also not very eloquent when I speak. I'm much more so when I'm writing. But it's like a lot of people have like a problem. They want to be liked for what they're doing, especially if they feel like they already, okay, this is me, this is what I write, this is who I've been for the past few years, and then you get so tripped up in your head about, okay, I can never do anything else because I am this person. I write unicorns and glitter, and that's all I write. And then it's like you can't do anything else, and that's such a shame when people do that, because one of my core philosophies has always been that the more things you can do, and like the more things you can explore. So like, say I like samurais, clearly, but it's like my love of samurais combined with my love of art, combined with writing, combined with like, I have a physics book now that I'm reading about like the physics of teleportation and like force fields and lasers and phasers and stuff like that. But it's like I explore that, like I know like Taoism, Buddhism, Shintoism, and like a whole bunch of other stuff. Oh, I have a hair, it's bothering me. But like all that other stuff, it like combines to kind of create who I am and who my work is. And it's just like I've never allowed myself to be like pigeonholed, because I've never inherently cared to begin with. So people sort of expect that, and they kind of already know. Like people know you're not just one. Laura's not all just unicorns and glitter and rainbow. Like there's a depth to you, like you're a well-rounded person, and it's really what we choose to share to other people. So largely why I can share a bunch of stuff and why I never really cared in the beginning about how my writing was perceived was because writing was for me, and it was fun for me, and I wrote these characters, and I loved like spending time with the characters and like uncovering like who they were as people, because they started as like names on a page. And I was like, okay, I have this person named Kilo, I have this person named Shenrei, and then I was like, I didn't know anything about them, so it was just like I felt like I was like this puppeteer who was trying to like, it was like, what are these characters doing? Like they had no purpose because they were just names on a page. And then the more I started writing about them, the more I got to know them. So it's not like they're not like a name on the page anymore. It's like I know their fears, their hopes, and it wasn't like this weird stuff where it's like, you know, you have a character sheet, let's write out their hopes, their fears, blah, 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 blah. Like that helps, but it's like I needed to see them in action. Like I've written stuff that's not in any of the books, probably will never be in any of the books, that have helped me get to like know these characters. So I write more from an aspect of like there's this separation between me and the characters. Like I have gifted my characters wonderful aspects of myself. Like Shenrei was very much, she started out as a person who was my younger self, where she was like self-conscious and had a bunch of self-doubt and just like was really intimidated by like, you know, like her mentor, by Asdar, and just like by the general's men, and she was really self-conscious. And I was like, I found her hard to write, because it was like, oh my gosh, it's me. And it's hard to write about yourself in a way where you're like trying to be that character. It's always like separation. You need that separation. But it's hard, because when I write some things about Kilo, he's very like internal in his brain, and he like goes off on these tangents about what he's thinking, and that's very much who I am too. I have the same personality type. So there's been times when I've written stuff where I will actually work myself into like an anxiety/panic attack, and I have to physically stop writing and like get away, because like my heart is racing. It's like I feel like I'm so in that moment with that character that I physically cannot continue. And that's something that I haven't, people don't really talk about that, so it's like I don't know if it's just me and I'm really weird, but I get like, it also doesn't help that I write in first person, so it's like super easy to like slide into these characters and sort of like live through them. But it's always one of those things where you have to like remember that you're not your characters, especially if they're going through like these things. Like we can sort of like live through them or like infuse or like see ourselves in them, but it's like I maintain that separation between who Kilo is and who I am, especially as I delve into the heavier topics of my series, which there are quite a few. It's more like writing for a lot of authors is kind of like therapy in a way. There's been certain moments in my series, definitely with Shinra. This is a minor spoiler if you haven't read my book. It's not that far, and it's like on chapter 4 or 5 or whatever. But Shinra, I had made the decision of doing what every person does, where my poor young protagonist's parents die, and then she is parentless. So that more or less was like an exploration of me having lost my own mother, and then I gotta kind of like heal by writing how she kind of keeps her mother's memory alive, and just, it felt healing, and it was therapeutic for me because it was like, okay, I'm not my character, but she's experiencing the same thing. So that's kind of like, when you get into the heavier topics, it's one of those things where you have to. I have 3 dogs and 2 cats, guys. Like, this is always going to happen. But, you have to maintain that distance, and it's okay to get, like, really into, like, a scene. Like, this is also, I talk a lot about my stories. I've been pretty upfront, though, about that there's going to be an instance of, or an aspect of suicide in book 3, and I've already sort of written like a couple scenes. I've actually written it 3 times because I didn't like the first way I had written it, but every time I write it, like, I physically have an emotional reaction to this scene because I've been there when, like, I've been on the other side of a phone call, just like listening to friends who have been in that situation where, like, I just can't go on. It's like I don't know what to do with my life has no purpose, etc., etc., and it's like one of the most terrifying feelings ever. So writing that into, it's not me, it's not my emotions, it's my characters experiencing something very similar to what I have. And I'm already gonna say, like, don't be afraid of the scene, it's okay. Kilo's there, and Kilo knows how to handle the situation really well, so, like, nobody needs to worry about it. It's just, like, a very raw kind of experience that not a lot of people have explored, and or it's going to be good for everyone. It's going to be difficult, but difficult things are okay. And I think the heavier topics need to be spoken about because through fiction, it's one of the best mediums / vehicles for us to kind of like ponder things about ourselves, just like having empathy for a character who has gone through the same thing. And even just side tangent, one of the reasons why I write fantasy is that it's easier to take people into a fantasy world. Same thing with animation. If you take people that it's animated or it's fantasy, it like breaks the appearance of reality, and it kind of removes you enough that you can then explore heavier topics without it being like super dense and heavy and intense. So I like writing fantasy because I get to talk about some of these aspects of like commentary about my worldview, and just like these characters doing things where it's not like the real world and it's like fantasy elements. So it's like, okay, I can entertain these thoughts about who we are as people, like who we are as a society, like compassion and like forgiveness, second chances, just like different cultural differences and stuff. Man, that was a really long tangent. I think that actually, I'm looking over here. Heavier topics. That was one of my sticky notes. Don't be afraid of the heavier topics. There was something that you said about wanting to get the emotions, and you're trying to like pour your heart out into these characters and not getting it right the first time, and then you feel bad like editing it, which is... This is kind of the difference between writing the first draft for yourself and then in editing, it's more or less trying to put the pieces into place to then make it for the reader. So the first draft is always for yourself. And this, I know this is said a lot, but it's true because you have different intentions. Whereas the first draft, I always write super messy and I'm just like trying to like barf out the words and try to get the story down. But then when I'm doing it in editing, it's like, okay, I want to write this scene. What do I need to do? I need to put X, Y, Z into place so that this moment is then more powerful. So it's not really that the emotions were wrong. It's about taking that nugget of emotion, and someone who deletes a lot of words, I will often find where there's like a paragraph or a sentence that's really good, and then everything else is terrible. So I will delete that, and then I will rewrite around that aspect or that emotion, like get that main feeling that I had, and then I will rewrite it to like enhance slash incorporate more into the story, because you can't have a character who, this is, I'm just pulling this out of the top of my head. You can't have a character betrayal without like leading up to the betrayal. Like you need to, like if there's a character who you don't even know or who isn't really part of the main character's life, like it's not going to feel that intense. So you'd be like, okay, I want to do this, happens, and then it's like, okay, I need to have an instance where these characters are talking, where they're close, and we see that they're not just like acquaintances. So I need to foster like a sense of compassion and like trust between them. I need this scene that's going to do this and it's going to do that. And it's mostly when you're trying to like outpour your emotions into writing, is it's not that it's wrong, it's just that it might not be told in exactly the way that's going to come across to the reader. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. It's more about having to explain slash put like all the little details in the between the lines, as opposed to putting that raw emotion. Like there's a few moments where I've been writing about Kilo's backstory where it's like, this is very visceral for me when I'm writing it. Like I have like that panic attacky feeling. And then I need to edit it to kind of have it make sense, like strengthen it, lengthen it, so that you have like specific moments leading up to it. Because that's one of the things I would say that I have qualms. I don't know. I have misgivings about some stuff. Like some indie writers who like their writing is really great, but like they have these moments and it's kind of like fragmented and broken, where it's like this moment here would have been so much better had you done XYZ beforehand. Like you have to lead up to it. So that's hard to do when you're just like writing from the heart. So hopefully that's helpful. But that's how I kind of think about it. I wrote down, not everything needs to be shared or finished. Just as one of my notes from listening to your video, sometimes you start projects and then don't finish them, and that doesn't mean it's not bad. Finished projects are good, but if you start something, there's always something that you can learn from them. So it's more about learning from the process of creating, as opposed to having the shiny finished project all the time. So sometimes it's good to start things and to play around with an idea and be like, well, I don't really feel like finishing it, but I did learn about this. So sticky note complete. That one's also complete. I think I mostly talked about writing as more of a process and what I learned. I'm going to do a time check here. 17 minutes, not too bad. Yeah, I mean, mostly how I've changed with writing is that I now have readers in mind. When I'm writing, I will mostly say, this is the only pep talk that anyone will ever need right here, right now. This is what you're going to need to listen to. So buckle in. This is going to be good. So when I first started writing my book, I wrote it for myself. I didn't think that anyone was really going to like it. Like I wrote it and published it in hopes that maybe I could find an audience, but it wasn't the most important thing to me. And for a lot of years, actually, even when I started working on my second book, the only person that really liked my book was me, and that was fine. I was writing for myself. I was more or less like this lone wolf type in the writing community, and I didn't have like a strong foundation. And then I started really wanting to find like my people who understood my writing, and I had, this is going to get really cheesy really fast, guys. But basically I had this reader who read my book and they loved it and they messaged me. And if you haven't figured out who this is Laura. And she basically messaged me and was talking about Kilo and how much she loved Kilo. And then that blossomed into a lot of messages. We talk almost daily about like our writing. And she was the first person who really super liked my book. And that was the moment when I was like, I can no longer lone wolf it. It was sad. I was like, my whole like thought process about being writers being like these lone creatures, and here I was striving forward all by myself, was shattered because now I had somebody who really liked my writing, and then I had to think about what they would think about what I would do to my characters, which is not bad. It's just it's different having people that are then reading your stuff and actually care, because then you have to worry about are they going to freak out when I do this, or will they not like me doing this sort of thing. And that's a little bit harder to wrestle with, being that as I write, I kind of keep in mind, okay, what will Laura think about this? Or I like chuckle to myself as I'm writing a scene because I was like, oh, Laura's gonna hate this. So it's different when you have people that you need to sort of care about, in the sense that I know I shared about with some other friends, I shared that I'm sure this is not true. I don't know if this is true, but I watched Naruto growing up, and there is now this rumor circulating around, which I didn't know. I didn't know that the new series, the spin-off series, the sequel, Boruto, was actually not written by the same creator. He actually gave the series to his top assistant for him to then write a new world and feel, and he kind of gave it to like all these people that had grown up and watched Naruto. So now it's like their new thing and they're taking it in this new direction, so that sort of scares me a little bit more. But there's this rumor going around that they're gonna kill Naruto off, and I'm so upset because I grew up with Naruto from like when I was 12 until I was 30, where I'm 30 now. Like, I've watched Naruto and I watched him grow as a character, so it's like 20, 18 years, I had to do math, 18 years, like, I've watched this character grow from, like, this little tiny puny character who, like, everyone hated, and then, like, he grew up to become this great, wonderful person, and now they're rumoring to kill him? That's so terrible. You can't do that. I was joking, when I was talking to one of my other friends. I was like, here's this idol that you all love and worship now, let's just kill him off. Like, you can't do that. It's like an unwritten rule. You can't kill off the main shonen protagonist in a series. You can't do that. So, I don't know. Like, he survived a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of moments where you're like, oh no, Naruto's gonna die. But, like, now you're like, oh, these are the assistants. I mean, it's like a series where people do die, and they kind of have to go on without them. So, I don't know. That just kind of makes me think about, as an author, just thinking about the people who dearly love your characters and who really care about what happens, and it's not really all about just you being, okay, here's this character that I'm writing about, I'm gonna do this because I think it's fun. You know, I feel like you have to take care of the fandom that you're creating and the people and your readers and stuff, so I think that's something you need to keep in mind, but it ultimately, it's your vision for the project, and I will always take care, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do, like, the vision in my head, because I'm so sorry, but I have, like, a lot of stuff that's going to happen in book 3 that is going to be tough for characters to go through, and I have the same mindset as, like, Rurouni Kenshin's mangaka, where I feel like these characters will have earned their happy ending. Is that a spoiler? I don't know. You'll have to wait to see until book 3 to know exactly what that means. But I like to think that I am taking readers on a journey, and I'm exploring the world, and I'm doing it mindfully and carefully, and I'm not going to be reckless with the trust that has been given to me. So yeah. That was a good tangent. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what kind of question I can give you, since I know you like to be organized. So I guess maybe why you like writing in the genre, and why you like reading the stories that you write, or why you like reading the stories you read, and maybe have a discussion about that. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I don't usually plan anything. I don't have anything strongly on my heart, so that was the first thing that came to mind. So feel free to digress from my random topic. All right, that is all for now. My long rambly video that one day maybe we'll rein them in, but it's kind of fun to just go. So I think that is all for me, and I look forward to your next video, and I will talk to you later. Bye!